Senator Surovell, have you reviewed the materials that we're handing out before?
Well, some of them came from me and some of them came from my constituents, so I'm sure I've seen the pictures. I believe I was there.
All right. And if you're comfortable with the information we're handing out, please proceed to present the bill.
So, Madam Chairman, I've handed you all a package here that I've prepared, which some of you saw when I presented this bill before. I know Delegate Campbell was there, and I think Delegate Moorfield might have been there. This bill has to do with shopping carts. So basically the bill is a local authority bill. It only applies in Northern Virginia, nowhere else in the Commonwealth. But basically why I bring the bill is I've taken 230 shopping carts out of a creek in 5 different creek cleanups. Since I've done this, other people have reached out to me, other communities, of people that of shopping carts being left all over the place. And this is a problem in a lot of densely populated areas, especially near apartment complexes and large big box retailers. And all the bill does is it says that if a locality wants to choose to do so, they can adopt an ordinance, and it's modeled, by the way, on a Virginia Beach ordinance. Margaret Ballard with the Virginia Retail Merchants Association, who used to be their lobbyist until about 2014, gave me the idea, and she pointed out what Virginia Beach was doing. It was modeled on that, but it basically says that if a county code inspector finds a shopping cart of a company off their property, they can send the retailer a notice and say, hey, we found your cart. You've got a week or two to pick it up. If they don't pick it up, and the county has to pick it up, they can assess the retailer the cost of removing that cart. That's what it says. And there's also, by the way, an additional provision there that says a locality can adopt an ordinance to hold a person responsible for a civil infraction who's taken a shopping cart off their property. Under the Code of Virginia, it's already a Class 3 misdemeanor to do that. This would create a lower civil infraction, not criminal, civil infraction that a locality could have for up to a $500 fine if they find somebody pushing a cart around that's off the owner's property. And that's basically what the bill does. But if you just look at these pictures and see all the crap that I've had to deal with in this creek, it takes a 3-man team about an hour to pull a cart out of a creek once it gets into that creek and it starts burrowing into the ground. And if you just take 230 carts times 3 people times an hour, you just get an idea of what people have to deal with. That's effectively what the bill does, and that's the short version. This legislation, I think it was in the committee last year, no, 2 years ago maybe, in CC&T sub where it died on a tie vote. And I'm hoping we can get it done this year because this is a real problem.
Thank you, Senator Surovell. I would like to emphasize that this is permissive.
Yep. And it's only Planning District 8. That's it. Alexander and Arlington saw the bill and loved it, and they wanted to have the authority also, so I just opened it up to the entire Planning District 8.
Thank you. I see Delegate Carter, Delegate LaRocque, Delegate Coiner. Please go ahead, Delegate Carter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've spoken with the patron. I have a concern about the $500 civil penalty that's in subsection D of this bill. My concern is that might be levied concurrently with the Class 3 misdemeanor, which also carries a $500 penalty. So I'm concerned that this might end up turning a violation of this into $1,000 for a shopping cart. And so I apologize to council for not bringing this in advance, but I'd like to see if we could amend subsection D to state that the civil penalty shall not be assessed for the same infraction that a misdemeanor violation of 18.2-102.1 has already been issued for.
I have no problem with that amendment. I think what he's basically saying is that you can't bring the 2 charges at once.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is there a second? All right. The amendment has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The amendment is accepted. I see Delegate LaRocque, Delegate Coiner, Delegate Campbell. And I would ask you to be very brief since there are several other committees meeting at the same time and a number of us have to be in other rooms. Please go ahead, Delegate LaRocque.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for the patron.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I must say that conceptually this looks okay. My biggest concerns would be the notification, perhaps this patron could describe specifically the provisions of notifications and if there is any cap on the charges that could be assessed against the owner of the shopping cart. So notification, cap on charges. Are we going to be?
Well, it would be up to the locality, but it would seem they'd be notified just like any other kind of code violation. No, there's no cap because it depends on how long it takes to remove it. If it's burrowed in the ground and it takes, again, 3 men an hour to take it out, that's more than if it's just laying on the street and they throw it in the back of a truck.
Okay.
So,
Right.
but there is no cap on terms of what the retailer can be charged.
Okay. Thank you, Delegate LaRocque. Delegate Coiner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So while I understand the problem, I don't believe this bill in its current form takes into account the many layers of what you would see at most shopping centers. So in most shopping centers, you have the underlying property owner, the real property owner, and then you have tenants in each of the locations. So if you look at the pictures that were delivered, Petco, Lowe's, all of these different folks are tenants. They all have different shopping carts, and they all have leases to have their space on the piece of property. The way the bill is written, it provides that the owner of the cart, which is the tenant, yet it provides for the means to collect and put a lien based on the collection of taxes, which would be the property owner who has no authority over the shopping carts. So your means of collection does not work in terms of how you would go about instituting a lien for this purpose, it being the tenant, not the underlying property owner. Number two, if you look at most of those tenants, when I looked at the pictures of the problem tenants that are highlighted, they are very, very difficult to locate in the state of Virginia. I represent underlying landowners, and I often have trouble trying to find the folks to contact for those underlying tenants. So I think you could probably look at a different notification than who is listed in the current code as you have it drafted. The last thing that I would say is, prior to Delegate Carter suggesting his amendment, I think a more appropriate civil penalty would be the cost equivalent to the owner of the cart and or the locality of removal. You know, if you look at what is an appropriate civil remedy, if you catch the person who did it, it would be providing for reimbursement for all of the costs to whomever was responsible for recollecting it or fixing it. You know, if we think this is such a big issue, I don't know why we have a problem with it continuing under the current statute as a Class 3 misdemeanor and forcing the person to pay for the total costs under this proposed new code section. I think there is a solution. I don't think it's currently drafted. This gets you where you need to be. I would propose carrying this over till next year and continuing working on it so that you have a solution that works and you can actually collect these fees.
Thank you, Delegate Coiner.
Can I address
Please
that?
go ahead.
First of all, it's not a lien on the real estate, it's a lien on the cart. So that means that the locality can sell the cart and keep the money. And most of these carts are worth money. Many scrap metal recyclers will take them. In fact, when I put these out to be picked up, often a bunch of people will take them and steal them and sell them for scrap metal once I put them on the side of the road. But it's not a lien on the real estate. Secondly, many of the retailers that are in here own their real estate, at least in the area I'm pointing at. Walmart owns their lot, Costco owns their lot. But yes, Home Depot and Petco are tenants, but it's still not a lien on the real estate. This doesn't even say that. So I'm not sure you're reading it correctly. But beyond all that, it's very difficult to identify who's done this. This is why it happens. And the locality is basically what you have here is nobody's enforcing when the carts leave. The retailers don't, they find it's okay to have a person there checking bags when they come in, but for some reason they can't put out somebody in the lot to make sure their carts don't get stolen. They have made a business decision to allow their property to be stolen hundreds of times. This is basically like somebody putting their car out in front of their house with the keys on the hood, watching their car get stolen 250 times and having the police respond every time and saying it's the person who stole its problem. That's what's happening here. And this problem they have has become a taxpayer problem. It's become a community's problem because the retailers won't deal with it. And that's why we need to have a system that incentivizes them to actually act and do something about it. That's what this does. And the last time I brought this, I think Delegate Campbell, I think you said, I think this, you're onto something here, but, let's see if they fix it, keep working with them. If they don't fix it, come back and I'll support the bill. And that's what's happened here. They will not fix this problem, no matter how many letters we send them, how many times they do it, they just don't feel the need to deal with it.
Madam Chair, follow up.
Briefly, please.
In looking at the photos, in most areas where you have shopping carts that are taken, it's because most folks don't have transportation, and so the easiest way to get goods home is to take the shopping cart with you. When you look at other things that get dumped on properties, we tend to hold the property owner where they're dumped accountable. Tires, for example, if they end up on your private property, you're responsible for the disposal. And what we have found when we hold the underlying property owner where they're dumped responsible is they tend to figure out a way to stop or document the dumping.
Right.
So I don't see within your proposed bill, if you look at all of these large complexes, if the underlying property owner of those were responsible for carts not being left on their private property, you might have less of that taking place.
Senator
Madam Chair,
Surovell.
We'll just point out, these are being left on public property. They were left on a creek. I mean, the county asked me to bring this bill because it's being left on their property. They had to spend $67,000 cleaning this creek up 10 years ago because of this problem. And I've been cleaning up for them for free with about 50 people a year now for the last 6 years. So that wouldn't solve this problem either.
Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for the patron.
Sure.
Please go ahead.
Yes, Senator, there's no question, you got a big problem up there. And I mean, just looking at the photos, it goes beyond shopping carts as well. I mean, you've
Yep.
got tires, you've got trash.
Yep.
You're in a waterway. I
Yep.
presume you might even have a public health hazard here at some
Yeah,
point.
it's pretty nasty.
My question for you is, why does the locality not believe it has sufficient authority under the zoning ordinance to enact regulations that might deter the shopping cart owners
Right.
from?
What I would say is that I don't believe they think they have Dillon rule authority to require retrofits. So first of all, this Costco that you see on here is a brand new Costco. And when they were opening it up, I wrote Costco a letter and asked them to build, actually a lot of retailers have cart control systems. Walmart actually did retrofit their property after I told them about this, and they put a wire in the ground, you run the cart over the wire and a brake clicks on so the cart won't go anymore, but then they stopped buying carts with the brakes on them. So Costco, when they built it, I told them to put a cart control system. It was a lot cheaper to do it when you're building the property than to retrofit, and they just said, hey, our people don't steal carts. I've now taken $15,000 Costco carts out of the creek. So Costco carts are real big ones, and they're metal. They're more expensive than the Home Depot or the Petco. I've learned all about shopping carts. There's actually a book about shopping carts. You want to Google it. There's a North American Field Guide to loose shopping carts. You can buy it on Amazon for $75. I have it in my office. You can borrow my copy if you want to see it. But the locality doesn't think they're allowed to require it unless they do it as part of a rezoning. And so you can't retrofit. You can't order it as part of it. Unless a property owner wants to rezone their property, they can't require it, I think. So that's what they think. They don't think they have Dillon rule authority to do it unless it's part of a rezoning.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can certainly amend their zoning ordinance upon proper public hearing, and
Excuse me, are you asking a follow-up question?
I'm just making a commentary that I would hope would help the senator in regard to.
I hope so too.
Yes.
Go ahead.
But I do have a follow-up question.
Yeah, well, Fairfax County's here. He says I'm right, but maybe I'm wrong. You might know better. Go ahead.
No, I don't. I mean, I would just analogize it to a dump or some sort of a junkyard, a car junkyard. You know, the erection of barrier fences, that would shield the view of that from the public. That would be certainly, and historically has been allowed under zoning ordinances. How would this be different?
Well, if you're talking about, if you're talking about zoning the store location, these are big open malls like any strip mall you'd see out on the. There's a picture here at the beginning of what we're talking about, at least the area I'm talking about. Okay, and by the way, there's a civic association from Springfield that testified in the Senate hearing who cares very much equally about this. Arlington needs this solution. Alexandria does. Anywhere there's densely populated people living in apartments, this becomes a problem. But with regard to the parking lot, I don't think you could put up fences around a Walmart. People just push it out the sidewalk. This is a pedestrian area, right? And there's sidewalks that come in all directions, and so I'm not sure how putting up fences would be useful. Localities have specific authority about locating landfills. It's in the code, but they don't have specific authority about shopping cart remedial measures or something. So I don't think they have Dillon rule authority right now to deal with this specifically enough.
Sure.
Madam Chair, I have a motion.
Delegate Heretic.
Point of order.
I move the pending question.
I have some people that came to testify.
Point of order, Madam Chair. I
Yes.
believe Delegate Coiner made a motion and I second.
I did not hear it as a motion. I heard it as a suggestion to the patron of the bill.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, are we going to hear from testimony for and against from the public?
There are a number of delegates who have put their speaking light on too. And we are running out of time. I see Delegate Leftwich and Delegate Guy. Did you change your mind? Okay. Would you please be brief?
Well, Madam Chair, just a point of order. I think a motion for the pending question is non-debatable. So as much as I'd like to talk, having been a former bag boy and responsible for gathering carts, I think I'd have to yield to the motion that's non-debatable.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we vote on the pending question,
Point of order, Madam Chair.
whether we report this bill as amended.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Is it the chair's prerogative to accept that motion or reject it or delay it pending completion of a full and fair hearing whereby testimony for and against would be heard? Is that the chair's prerogative?
Yes. I do believe that we need to vote on Delegate Coiner's motion, which I did not recognize as a motion that had been seconded, and that is the proper procedure. So all those who are, now does this have to be a recorded vote? A voice vote? All right. All those who support carrying SB 631 over, please say aye. All those opposed? No. Motion fails. Delegate Heretic.
Let's see, move to report with amendment.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that SB 631 be reported with an amendment.
Madam Chair, I think we are allowed to discuss the motion, and I have my button on now, if I could.
Your button is only working sporadically.
Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, if the chair would permit, I would like to make a comment and ask a question of the patron.
If you can be brief,
I'll try.
Delegate Leftwich.
So first, I guess the comment, as I see the problem here, we really have stolen property. Whoever's taken this cart off the property has done so, and if it's in a ditch, they have done it with the intent to permanently deprive the owner. And I'm not sure aware of any other place in the law where, like, for example, if my car's stolen and someone drives it into a lake or a pond, where the county or the state is going to have the authority to bill me for its removal when I'm the victim. And so essentially, the shopping cart owner is the victim. I could support this bill if it said that if they give the owner of the cart notice and they don't come pick it up, that it is deemed abandoned and they lose the right to that property, and this county can trash it without being, because again, if my car's stolen, the police have an obligation to notify me and allow me to recover it and do whatever I want to with it. And so there's a problem with just the county taking the property and destroying it without giving the owner notice or involving them in the process. But to bill them for having something stolen from them, I think is a bridge too far for me.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, Delegate Surovell. I mean, Senator, oops.
That's exactly what the bill says. It says they can't be assessed until they've been notified their property's been located. They have a period of time they have to wait to come remove it themselves. And if they don't come get their shopping cart after a week or 10 days or whatever period the county sets, then they're assessed. And then they're assessed. This is based on a program that's working in Virginia Beach. It was based on the Virginia Beach practice. Margaret Ballard pointed it out to me.
May I respond, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Okay.
Go
So,
ahead.
but that's my point. You take it from them, fine, but I don't see how you can fine a victim for not coming and getting something.
Madam Chairman.
Senator Sorovell.
I mean, if this was like one cart being taken, that'd be fine. But when somebody's property is stolen repeatedly, and then they allow their property to be taken again and again and again, 200, 300, 400, probably 500 times, and they choose to just keep letting it be stolen, at some point that becomes the taxpayer's problem and not their problem anymore. And I'm just trying to balance the playing field here so that the victim is incentivized to do something about their stuff being stolen because they're allowing it. There's other retailers that they have they have a coin deposit system, so you get your money back when you put the cart back. There's others that have these poles. You go out the door and the pole hits the door, so you can't leave the premises with your cart. There's cart control systems. They're just choosing not to do it. It's costing them business to them, and it's now a taxpayer problem.
Senator Sorovell, there are two more members of the committee who would like to speak. Nope, it's gone down to one. Delegate Rowe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I've proposed a friendly amendment, if the senator is so inclined, which would be to define the length of notice actually given, because right now what the senator was saying was that it's basically based on what the locality would determine as a adequate period of time. Whereas I think the discussion, especially coming from Delegate Leftwich in this case, is maybe if we have a defined period of time of, let's say, 30 days, or we can have a smaller period of time of 2 weeks, 15 days, something like that. We'll say 15 days. If you have 15 days, kind of as a compromise here, then that would give people enough time to come and collect their property. At the same time, I see that there's other people who probably want to comment on it.
That's fine with me.
Are you making an amendment?
Madam Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
Wait a second. Let Delegate Rome finish, please.
Madam Chair, I would.
Okay. Please.
While I would be happy to entertain discussion, I will make amendment I will motion the amendment at the proper time.
Okay. Delegate, Senator Sorovell, do you have a comment?
That's fine with me.
All right. Delegate Hodges.
Madam Chair, parliamentary inquiry. We have a motion before us, so an amendment before us would not be proper at this time, and I would move the pending question.
Yes, I believe it would be proper. It's been moved and seconded that we vote now, move the pending question. That's a voice vote, yes? Okay. So it's been moved and seconded that SB 631 be reported with an amendment. Kirk.
Are we accepting the other amendment, or Delegate Rome's amendment? No. The motion was to
Right.
report.
There's a motion for us to vote on. Would the clerk please open the roll? The original amendment. This has been moved and seconded that SB 631 with the first amendment that we agreed upon.
Madam Chair, did we vote on the amendment?
We did. We voted on the First Amendment. We did not vote on the Second Amendment. This is the First Amendment, as I just said.
Thank you.
Please record your vote on the electronic voting board. Okay. Clerk, close the roll. Reports with amendment 12-7.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sorovell. Okay. I will. Okay, stop. I'd just like to apologize to those of you who came and wanted to speak, and we did not have time to hear you.